What's up, the internet? It's me, it's Kyle, and that person there. Wow, I just messed up for the first time in like a bunch of weeks. Is Dan? I
Yeah,
pointed with the wrong hand.
I noticed.
I haven't done that in a while.
You're back from the mirror world, huh?
Well, the exhaustion is real, bro. After the last convention, like the exhaustion is real.
Oh yeah.
So, this last convention I did, we often refer to as family reunion because it's a little more like a family reunion than the Comic Con in a lot of ways.
hmm
Um, Yeah, it's a Comic Con, but like Friday night is drinking draw, so you get to hang out with all of your creepy uncles while
Was
they
that
get slaughtered. Huh?
was that Cherry City?
Cherry Capital.
Cherry Capital.
Yep. While they get absolutely trashed, which is always fun.
Mhm.
And then Saturday night, everybody gets trashed again, and they have karaoke and a charity art auction to raise money for the Hero Initiative. All of that in the honor of longtime friend of the show, the late Steve Dillon.
hmm
And then Sunday night is the wrap party, which is select friends and vendors and volunteers and stuff all go out to dinner and wrap up the show, which usually winds up going incredibly late. And this year involved chocolate malt with Tony Schiavone, and uh, it was really weird.
You know what? That should be the new show for the series. Chocolate Malts with Tony Schiavone. That should be a new show on the
No,
Experience.
I will lose a foot, man. I can't drink that many chocolate malts.
I didn't say you had a drink with him. I'm saying him with guests over
No,
chocolate.
it was a good time. Like, but it's one of those conventions where the after party is as important as the during the day.
Oh
So
yeah.
you can't
Well,
get done and then go to bed. Like,
that's how conventions used to be. You didn't
right.
go to a con to sell books because it was a lost leader. You were out there advertising yourself. The important thing was the people that you made contacts with. San Diego Con was that way.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't about the con itself. It was bar con at the Hyatt.
Yeah,
You
no,
went
for
in
sure.
there and stuff like that. Or WonderCon back when it was in Oakland. The
Mhm.
convention center was in the hotel, and we all just went up to the second floor and hung out at the bar.
Right.
Uh, Wizard World Dallas, when that was in in Arlington, right? But that was another one. You stayed in the hotel that was directly across the parking lot from the convention center, and everybody went to the little sports bar in there.
Yep. No, I mean that's a lot of what this was too, except that it had more vegan food than I was comfortable with. Uh, which is zero vegan food.
Yeah.
But so this is in stores this week. A show with the name might change soon. I don't know. I'm not particularly attached to it.
Are these books not in stores this week?
No, they are, but like, mm, we have a new format. Maybe we should come up with a new name. Names are hard. Maybe we should call it Digressions with Kyle and Dan, and have it look like a soap opera opening. You have to smell the fart act. Okay.
Yeah.
Shout out to Joey Tribbiani. All right. So, Dan and I are going to talk about a bunch of books that we got to read this week. I read more this week than I did last week, but that's still very little because of, well, time. But I promise I will read more.
Where I picked my 5 books, read them, sent them to Kyle, and then went, oh wait, I just got this one from this public. Oh, I just got this one. Let's add this one.
Right. And then Kyle read all of the ones Dan read. So we're at least we're on the same page.
But did Kyle send Dan the ones that Kyle read that Dan didn't?
Kyle didn't have PDFs. Kyle had physical copies.
Oh.
Yeah. It's I'm working on getting him to start sending me PDFs. Mm-hmm. Right now it's just, yeah, we'll FedEx you some physical copies. Great. Thanks, man. So.
Well, I know which one I want to start with.
What do you want to start with?
I want to start with a thing called Truth from Image Comics. It was recommended by and mentioned when I did the interview with Jim Valentino. This was one of the books he was excited for. and having, he actually sent me the PDF, which I let you get as well. So
Yes.
I definitely want to talk about this one. And it is a really good book. Ilonda, Zanfardino, and Elisa Ramboli. Imagine if you spent your entire life trying to help people, to create something that would literally help save lives. That's what this lead character does. She creates this machine. It's a medical device. We don't really nail in what it is, but she's created it where it's more efficient and less costing than anything else on the market. And she's done it at such a low price that they will be able to put it in every hospital in the world. She is excited. She has sacrificed her life. She hasn't done anything other than work constantly. She's lost her marriage over this, everything. And she creates it, and she does her personal blog, signs it off, says, tomorrow I put everything out there. I've done it. And she goes home and she finds out that her husband's pushing her for divorce papers. But she has done her thing. She's ready, and she goes back to work the next day. Her parking pass doesn't work. Her door badge doesn't work. And she is told that she resigned the day before. And it's all this, basically her whole life work is taken away from her because of greed. And you think, okay, this is all just a huge, weird thing.
Sounds like my life.
She's being screwed over. Well, she goes out and gets blasted, just
as you do,
over the top drunk, and ends up sleeping it off in her car,
as you do.
Which she wakes up. And could you tell where this is supposed to be taking place?
No.
I thought it was somewhere in the U.S.
Yeah, me too. But because I read it once, you said to me I read it, and I read it kind of quick. I read it in about 5 minutes. Read it real fast, just because I had a lot to read today. Yeah. And then I went, wait a minute, and I went back and I reread it again, and I can see the inklings of things like NHS kind of more European style of thinking.
Okay, so this
especially in that center section where the boss's plan is revealed.
Yeah,
that little section. I'm going, oh, okay. You're making something so cheap and go in every hospital. You're doing that in a place where doing something like that is going to pay off for you. If you did that kind of work here, you're spitting into the wind unless you've got the polio vaccine, basically.
Yeah.
And especially in the light of the way people have treated the last year's worth of medical developments. So for me, rereading it a little slower kind of led me to this sort of European concept.
Yeah. I never picked up on it being Europe. So when she suddenly wakes up in the back of her car with this strange blonde lady girl driving it and says, we're almost in Italy, my first thought was, how long
did you travel by map?
And yeah, exactly. How did they get across the water? There's water between here and Italy, and it's a car. So that threw me off a little bit. But other than that, this is such a cool story because it pulls you in. You really get into this woman's life. You see what she's given up, the sacrifice, how important it is for her to really make a difference in the world and to save lives, and just see people of greed taking it away from her. But it's one of those where we start off with almost a Thelma and Louise opening. The ending of Thelma and Louise is the opening of this. Then we go into the story, and then we find her in the car with the blonde girl, and that's all we know at this point. So we get very invested in the lead character, know nothing about the girl, the blonde on the cover, and how it is that they seem to be about to die.
Right. So this book to me, to talk about it in a little more depth, was super triggery.
Mm-hmm.
In that I come from fields, and Dan, you do in a way too, where you could have your life's work taken away kind of in a moment's notice because of a decision that's made above your pay grade.
Yeah.
Um, I worked for years for a giant corporate megalith of a media conglomerate, and when you get let go from that place, you don't get to take your work with you. You can't. I know guys who left that job with 30 years of experience who couldn't take air checks, who couldn't take award-winning copies of award-winning broadcasts with them because it belonged to the company. Guys who couldn't take pieces of software they had written,
Yeah.
like their code that's non-proprietary code, with them because it belongs to the company. And so that part of this story for me was super triggery. Like I'm going, honey, this is why before you put that on your blog, you make sure your lawyer has a copy of everything. And even if the company does say, "Oh, that's ours," you at least have a leg to stand on then.
Yeah.
Now she's in this situation where everything she's worked so hard for is just gone.
Like that.
And
Overnight.
right, and I recognize this this desire to go out and really get absolutely demolished because of it. Like I know that feeling. And so this whole book had me feeling a kind of way, like having strong memories
Yeah.
about not great times in my own life. And then all of a sudden it gets turned on its head and it turns into this, oh, now her car is stolen and there's this other woman, but it's not really, and there's this other thing to it, and it hooked me, but it hooked me in emotionally, and then it hooked me in by throwing a twist at me at the end.
Yeah. Jim has this great eye for work, and we're getting it more and more. I mean, he really did revolutionize Image when he was in charge of the whole thing. And now with him focused just on Shadowline and as a boutique publisher, and I hate that term because he does so much more than boutique, but he puts
I just think it means he only publishes what he wants.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
By boutique, it's he doesn't have to take every pitch from every person. He can decide, no, that pitch isn't for me because that's not something I'm going to be interested in publishing.
Right. Jim's taste is very diverse, and when he picks something, it is good. It may not be what you expect to come, because I mean, this doesn't feel like anything Jim himself created.
Right.
But it just shows that he's got the eye. He's got that. He gave this great analogy when we were talking about how he feels like he's moved up into management. He went from being a player on the field to moving into like coaching and management and scouting and stuff like that. And I think he's one of the best in the industry. And just to find a thing called truth.
Well, it was interesting. We this weekend we spent a large part of the weekend celebrating Gary Reed, who, if you don't know, Gary Reed founded Caliber Comics. He's the guy who discovered Brian Michael Bendis and David Mack and a ton of great creators that you're reading about today. But he also gave a lot of higher ups and like publishing their starts. Both Pruitt brothers started there. Source Point Press came out of there. Gary Reed is, and Jen said it, kind of like the Kevin Bacon of comics. Everybody's 6 degrees from Gary Reed. And there are a bunch of other people like that. Joe Quesada, Christopher Priest, and Jim Valentino. I would put on that same level. Like, I don't know that I would put the other dudes at Image on that level, but I would put Valentino on that level. And what's hysterical is the guys I was hanging out with celebrating Gary Reed got their start because Gary Reed told them to go talk to Jim Valentino. And they did a book called, one guy, Seth, did a book called I Hate Gallant Girl at Shadowline, and then was put on Xenoholics with a very young, and nobody had heard of him yet, Joshua Williamson, because Jim Valentino's like, these two will work together. And Dirk Manning, who's been on The Experience a bunch of times, got his start at Shadowline with Jim Valentino.
Yeah.
So, like, when Jim says a book is good, shut up and give him your money. If he asks you to put more aliens in it, put more aliens in the damn book.
Yeah.
So,
and he's not, I mean, well, Jim is really good at his job.
yes.
I've worked with him on a couple projects, and, you know, he doesn't nitpick. He doesn't hyper, what's the term? Where they over.
He doesn't micromanage.
He doesn't micromanage, but he gets the best out of the people he deals with. And this is
absolutely
definitely one of my, I really like this book. So
yes, I enjoyed it. I read two of the books you sent me twice. There were a couple books I didn't get to because I read them twice, and this was one of them.
Okay.
Should we jump to the other book I read twice?
Sure.
The Rush #1. And I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't trust Cy Spurrier. I read it once and I'm like, that book can't have just gone the way it went. Like, it does. I just can't have. But it's Cy Spurrier, so of course it did.
Now, I actually read that last week because they sent it out like it was coming out last week, and then it didn't. So I was sitting on this and like, well, when it popped up this week, I'm like, oh, we have to talk about this because it is so unique.
Right.
got
before we go into breaking it down, I think because I actually went through after I read the book and read the solicit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the solicitation provides a lot of context for what we're about to talk about. Do you agree? Did you look at it?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
So
should I read the solicitation?
I got it. The hungry earth reddens under snow-clad hills. Oh, like that is just such a descriptive sentence.
Yeah.
Isn't it? 1899 Yukon Territory, a frozen frontier bloodied and bruised by the last great gold rush. But in the lawless wastes to the north, something whispers in the hindbrains of men, drawing them to a blighted valley where giant spider tracks mark the snow and impossible guns roar in the night. To Brokehoof, where gold and blood are mined alike, now stumbling towards its haunted forest comes a woman gripped not by greed, but by the snarling rage of a mother in search of her child. Like the descriptive words in that solicitation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is a woman who it's 1899. It's not the height of the gold rush. It's the waning of it. It's the
right. It's
end
the Yukon
of the
gold rush. It's This is when things were more about hookers and murder than gold. There are places, especially in Yukon Territory, that you can still go today where the hotels are still standing that these people stayed in or that were saloons back then that are some of the most haunted places on earth.
Yeah. And this poor woman, she leaves him with the father, who then neglects him and disappears so that he could go off gold rushing.
Right.
And the son has gone missing, and she is traveling. She's hired somebody to go with her. This old prospector, not prospector, but kind of a, I don't know. I don't know.
Outlaw. He's kind of a prospector, but he's more of an outlaw. In my mind, this is like what would happen if Wyatt Earp was a gun for hire.
Yeah.
But Wyatt Earp had kind of like gone all Rambo on it, where it's, no, I don't do that anymore. I'm just a gold prospector. Yeah, yes. But you're still the fastest gun around. Yeah, but I don't do that anymore. You know, that kind of thing. Like, that's who this guy is.
Yeah. And she hires him for like $1. I think it was.
Right. It's like, that's a lot of money back then.
I know.
But like, all right.
Yeah. And she's heading off into this territory to try to find her son. And there are these weird ass spiders, and there's this guy in a bowler hat that looked like he may be part of a spider.
Right. It's not entirely clear in issue 1 if this is a Doc Ock story or not.
Right.
Um,
Doc Ock, 1899, and yeah, But and then
there are definitely spiders of some kind, but
Yeah.
to me, the spiders are almost secondary to the bowler hat guy, who may be like the king of the spiders.
Yeah.
Or you know
Nothing
from
is
that
creepy
episode
in
of
the guy
Doctor
on
Who, the Spider Queen lady from Doctor Who?
Mm.
Maybe this is that. I'm not 100% sure, but there's something more nefarious afoot than just traditional late 1800s outlawedness.
Yeah, and don't get us wrong. We're not. What makes this book work isn't just Simon Spurrier's writing.
No.
Nathan Gooden's art is
Yes.
gorgeous in this. I mean,
Right.
really, really well done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I should have trusted Cy Spurrier when I read it the first time and went, no. That book, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was it.
It feels a little like a horror version of Deadwood.
Yes. I will say, and I'm not going to put it up because of it, there is a 1 in 50 incentive variant that is a little bit spoilery. So maybe don't look at that one.
Okay. Now I want to look.
Well, I mean, like if you're not interested in knowing more than the story tells you, don't look at that variant. Is all I'm saying. All right. Shall we move on to another one? I there's a couple that I have on the list that I didn't actually get to read quite yet. I have the PDFs. I just didn't get to it. And they're ones I haven't sent to Dan. So The Heathens, #1 from Aftershock. Still waiting to find out if I'm allowed to send this to Dan. But this is a new book by Cullen Bunn. And the concept on this book is essentially if you're a pirate and you've been to the edge of the abyss and come back, what is left to fight for? And the answer is everything. It's so it's the Lady Pirate Sheik, Lucky Luciano, Bumpy Johnson, Sophia the Golden Hand, and Billy the Kid on one team.
Nice.
Right. So if all of the greatest killers ever teamed up, that's the Heathens.
Wouldn't that be Ronald McDonald on the team then for greatest killers ever?
Well, I'm still looking for H.H. Holmes and some more of them, but you know, somebody has to be fictional here. So, but it's from Cullen Bunn and Aftershock. Check that one out, as well as After Dark from Aftershock. Jim Starlin's second work at Aftershock, but also you have Frank Thierry, Cullen Bunn, Joe Pruitt. And it's a horror anthology. Huh?
Simon Kudranski. Simon's an old friend of mine. We worked together on a Liam Sharp anthology years ago.
Yep. So really cool book. The last book that Dan didn't have a chance to read that I did read is Trashed. It's been out for a while. From Durf Backdurf. Thick hardcover edition. It's Durf is the new Harvey Pekar. This is about his time as a garbage man in Columbus, Ohio. It's hysterical.
Sounds like it's a bit focused on you too, being that
well,
woods.
Well, that's why I buy all the Durf's books. Like he's someone I've met. Mm-hmm. This was the one I was least kind of amped for. My friend Dahmer was amazing. And he just won a Ringo. But this book for me was the one I was least excited about because it just seemed less like his normal work. Mm-hmm. But in reading it, it's hysterical, but it's also incredibly informative about the municipal solid waste industry.
Because we all want to learn more about that.
If you don't think about it as much as you should, you should think about it more, because municipal solid waste is maybe the single greatest invention, like the way they handle it, of our time.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we would basically just constantly live in the plague. So, all
Aren't
right.
we, aren't we living in a plague?
Not that plague, the plague, like
Oh,
capital THE.
okay.
The plague, not a plague. All right.
Okay.
So let's do this one. The Chilling Adventures in Sorcery #1. Elliot Ray Hall.
Vincenzo Federici, Amy Chu, Derek Charm. Yeah, this is the solicitation makes this really interesting because it refers to this as the future of Archie comics starts here in an all new anthology, and it's all about Madam Satan. It's this weird little setup where you've got this opening with a woman going across the river Styx, and she's trying to get her way through hell, and the ferryman is it gets lost, and there's this whole discussion about how do you get lost crossing a river? There's one side and there's the other, and he's like, oh well, the current and all, and it turns out the ferryman is Archie, and that just shows you where this story is going.
Right. I mean, it is the River Styx, and it is Archie Andrews. I mean,
Yeah.
that guy couldn't get his jalopy home from school ever.
So it's a pretty twisted little story. It's got what happens to Archie. There's a story about Jughead, and then we find out that she's the principal of Riverdale, or was she? It's the other school. It's Sabrina's school.
I don't remember. I read this one really, really fast. I don't.
Yeah.
I was running out of time when I got to this one.
There's a couple quick stories. The Archie one feels like it's Five Nights at Freddy's. It's got that plot to it. He's trapped in an arcade where he's a security guard. And then the Jughead one is kind of a Seven Deadly Sin. You know, it's one particular sin, which is pretty obvious what Jughead's going to fall towards.
Sloth, right?
No. It has to do with burgers. But
of course it does.
This is if you're an Archie fan, you're probably going to enjoy this. I don't know if it plays to just new horror readers, because it is a little Twilight Zone-ish, but it is definitely seeped in the Archie universe.
I think what they're trying to do with basically things outside of the Sabrina run in this Chilling Adventures is outside of the main Sabrina run. I think they're trying to go to what I'm going to start referring to as the Zenescope model, where it's one-shots that tell an individual story, or in this case, several stories from the universe, but they can be read as one-shots individually, or they can be read as part of the bigger universe. And if you look at it as an individual set of one-shots, it maybe leaves a little something to be desired. If you look at it in we've read Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, we've read Afterlife with Archie, we've read Archie Goes to Hell, we've read all of these other kind of things in this realm of the Archieverse, it starts to carry a little more weight and starts to feel a little more rounded out.
Yeah.
So that would be my suggestion to folks. If you're into it, make sure you've at least kind of got some background in the Archie gang is dead realm.
Yeah. If you like the Netflix series, the Sabrina Netflix series, this may be up your alley.
Yeah. So, all right. We're gonna jump ahead, huh?
So we hit halfway.
Yeah, we're just gonna keep going. I don't know if we take a break, if we got time to hit everything.
Okay. Jennifer Blood, #2.
Yes.
This was kind of a weird one because we've spent so little time in this series with Jennifer Blood. You know, there's this whole copycat killer. We have this this woman brought in from Italy who's a hitter who ends up, we've got this little town set up where the police or the FBI basically drops the hardened criminals you know, so it's this crime run town, but it's like a witness protection program thing. And this woman comes in. She's a hitter. She works for the head mafia guy in the town. And there's this whole plot to draw Jennifer out that doesn't go the way they think it's going to. But we spend almost all our time with the hitter, who becomes the sheriff of the town. And we get Jennifer at the very end in a very Dexter-like moment. So I'm enjoying this series, but I'm really curious where they're going to go with it.
Yeah, that's true. This one is, I don't want to say it's not for me, but it's not my favorite Jennifer Blood.
Right.
I much preferred some other Jennifer Blood stories that I've read, including the first issue of this series, if I'm being totally honest. But I will stick with it and see where it goes because I do love the character and I love the concept. It just, this issue felt a little flat for me.
Yeah, Sean, you're right. It's Garth Ennis is the one that kind of put this character together for Dynamite. By the way, it's not listed on here. Kyle, I've been meaning to talk to you about this today, and Jennifer Blood's related. Have you seen that Dynamite is doing a series of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle homages with their covers? They're putting out, I think it's Jennifer Blood 1. I actually have it here. Hang on a sec. They're doing a whole series of turtle-themed covers. So Barbarella 5, Army of Darkness 1973, number 3, The Invincible Red Sonja, number 6, which is I think the last Jimmy Palmiotti one, and Amanda Conner. Jennifer Blood, number 3, Nyx, number 1, Purgatory, number 2, and Vampirella, number 5. They're all getting a Turtles homage cover.
Why does Nick hate me?
I thought Nick loves you if he's giving you Turtle homage covers.
Right, but like now I gotta I'm not reading some of those series.
Yeah, they're all by Ken Hazer. All the covers.
Okay. All right. And I love Ken.
Yeah. And they all look like the classic cover to the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
So to answer Adrian, when we're talking about is it really that flat? The first issue of this book came out with such fire, right? Like it was just an absolute, all right, I see where you're going. Let's do this. And then this felt more like a first issue, an expositional story for me. Like it was setting up what's going to happen in the next issue more than the first issue felt like it was setting up the rest of the series.
Now, see, I took it a little different. It might be the writer in me. To me, it felt like we're going to spend some time with the villain, who is a new character, so that when we bring these two together, and she, in a lot of ways, she is being billed as the antithesis for Jennifer Blood. Jennifer Blood has always gone up against mobsters. Now we're bringing in someone who is probably her equal. It's almost like the Marvel Studios method of putting up an equal bad guy. So I think that's what this issue was for, right, is to give us time with this hitter that gets brought in. I cannot think of her name off the top of my head.
Well, and that's kind of what I mean, right? Like that felt like a first issue setting up that, oh, this is a Jennifer Blood story. You've seen the cover. So the first issue is setting up who the bad guy is and kind of getting you into that realm. And then your second issue would be starting the motion towards the eventual clash.
Yeah.
The first issue felt like it was moving, the trains were moving forward. And now this issue is like, okay, but before that, this is what happened. So, I mean, it's not an uncommon way to do things. It just, to me, took me a little aback with what I was expecting from this series is all.
Yeah, I liked it well enough. I didn't dislike it. It didn't feel as flat to me as it did to you, but it isn't as intense as the first issue. But I think if you continue with this, it's going to pick right back up.
Yeah. Again. Oh, absolutely. Like I said, I'm not stopping. The flatness is not, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. it wasn't what I expected, so I wasn't prepared for it. Um, the next issue comes back and kicks you right in the teeth, and you're back in it.
And that's the one
So,
with the turtle cover. Turtle.
don't start with me, Wickline.
Cowabunga.
So, I before we go on to another Dynamite book, that I really really enjoyed, I want to mention a couple of Image titles, that not going to read, not going to talk about because they're ongoings now. But Two Moons was a book that I was really high on when it first started coming out, and continue to be high on. That has been announced and is continuing as an ongoing. It's supposed to be a miniseries. It did well enough now that they're going to continue it as an ongoing. From John Arcudi and Giovanna Nero. This part is called Ghost War, and it takes place 5 years after the events of the first series, which just wrapped up. And then, what is the which series are you talking about, Sean? And thank you, Julieta Romeo is the name of the assassin.
Yes.
In
Julieta.
Yeah. And then the other book I want to talk about is Silver Coin number 6. Matt Walsh won an Eisner for this thing. Like, you want to talk about killing it. Listen, so he did the first 4 books with he did it with a bunch of great writers, and now he's back with 4 more books. Listen to this lineup of heavy hitters that are writing this for. Joshua Williamson, who we've already talked about once tonight. Vita Ayala, Matthew Rosenberg, and Ram V. So this is continuing the story of the Silver Coin, which pick up the trade of Volume 1 if you want caught up on that one. But did you notice what the books are here? Nailbiter and Bitman. Right?
Yep.
Nailbiter is the book that Josh Williamson got known for.
Mm-hmm.
So, and a Bitman plays a role in the rest of the story. So,
cool.
We're going to move on to another Dynamite book that I thought was absolutely incredible. This is Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, number 1. This book was everything Sheena should be, in my opinion. Stephen Mooney continues to just be a wizard. I love everything he writes. What?
No, I like the. She's not a fish out of water. She's a piranha out of water.
Yeah.
She's ready to kick everybody's ass. Even when they turn the lights off to show her a video, she beats up a guy.
Right.
It's an interesting character. It's funny because I think of Dynamite and I tend to interpose Sheena and Jungle Girl from Frank Cho.
Sure.
But yeah, Sheena is very Tarzan-ish, and the whole when she goes to the big city, she fits in. But
it kind of felt like there were jungle to jungle style moments, like that Tim Allen movie from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
That felt kind of felt like that at times. It's Sheena is dreaming of the jungle, and it feels very normal. And then she wakes up and she's like in a penthouse apartment, but she's still Sheena.
Yeah.
And then it takes this weird turn and gets a little Matrixy. And it
ends in Biodome.
Right, and it ends with Stephen Baldwin and Pauly Shore. No, I'm kidding. But no, it really does. It's the fish out of the water story, but not so out of water that it dies necessarily.
Yeah, she's not a naive, it's like she could absolutely survive in the city, doesn't want to, has no desire to.
Right.
she immediately wants to get out of this restrictive clothing and back into her outfit, and she wants to be in the jungle, and that's all she cares about. And she's queen of the jungle. Yep, it's a
Yeah.
good first issue. It gets
And
you pull in.
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it to me also had this uh almost like, I don't know if you ever have read things like Rumspringa stories
Mm-hmm.
about when Amish kids go to the city. That's almost what it felt like too. It's like, yeah, I could do this, but I don't like it. Why would I do it? Why would anyone want this? And it really flies in the face of what you're used to. So
Yeah.
let's do this, Dan. I'm confident now that we can finish if we take a break. Do you
You
want to take a
sure?
break? Get a drink of water? Well,
I,
so
I,
actually, you know what? Let's do this. Screw that. Let's just do this. Um, you had a book called Dot something,
dot self.
right? Which isn't on the list of books that I have coming out this week.
Right. But it's from
Um,
Comixology. So,
right. I mean, so it's not on the list of books that are coming out this week, and I couldn't find it on next week. So I don't have a cover piece for it.
okay.
So, if you want, what I will do while you're talking about it is I will pull up the and share the PDF. It's just going to take me a second.
Okay. This is from, I got my thing here for it. This was sent to me by Comixology. This is another one of their new series that they're doing. It's Christopher Sabella, it's Cara McGee, and the idea is that they've created this technology called postscripts, which is basically a little chip you toss in your mouth. It gets into your system, and it starts backing up your memories to a computer, and it basically creates a digital version of you that when you pass away, it uploads you into this blank body, this artificial body, and gives you like 48 hours to set your affairs in order, say goodbye, do those things. So it's like a battery extension for your life. Well, this woman is a successful life. She's got the nice house. The husband's a doctor who works all the time. And she's got a retail career that's going really well. And suddenly all these people keep popping up angry at her and talking about things from her past. Well, it turns out her postscript has gotten hacked and added to a bunch of blank people. And she doesn't know why. She's getting attacked by people. Somebody shows up and explains that he is her because he has all her memories and stuff, but is in a completely different body. And at one point, her car gets blown up. So it's a very interesting premise, the idea. It reminds me a little bit of Altered Carbon, with the idea that your entire life is on a stack and it's been the back of your neck. So it's something like that. And they have these sleeves. So think of it as a modern day version of Altered Carbon, with this poor woman having her entire life, where instead of identity theft, think of her entire life being stolen and uploaded into multiple sleeves or multiple blanks. So that's what Dot Self is. It's a real trippy book, and I'm really curious where it's going to go, but it takes a little while to get there. It's a little sluggish. You get to the end and you go, oh wow, okay, that's what they're doing. But it's a little sluggish, and it's a real jumping around time wise, which sometimes I think it gets overused.
Yes.
So
I read the book, and I'm not going to speak poorly of it by any means, but this is not a book where I would read issue 2. It's something that I would maybe wait for Dan to tell me, man, I really liked it, and then I'd pick up a trade. Or I would get it, I'd buy it in bulk. I'd buy the first 5 digitally and read it that way in more of a binge style. Because of the sluggishness, I think.
yeah.
I have a lot more tolerance for something like that when I can just keep plugging along than if it's I read it and it was sluggish and did I really like it? Okay, the end was good, but like, is it good enough to justify the second book when there will be new stuff I'm gonna want?
They
So
spent they spent too much time on the setup and
yeah,
creating the character that we didn't. I don't think we needed.
yeah.
So
But this is a book that I would say confidently I would buy as a trade if people started talking about it. Like it was like if Dan started telling me, man, I really liked Dot Self and I like Christopher Sabella's work. So that might be enough that if I'm looking for something to read on a plane or on a long
yeah.
car ride or to read over a weekend in my hotel room at a convention, that I would grab it as a, oh yeah, okay, I'll try this Chris Sabella thing and see what happens. So,
Think of this as a great concept with a sluggish pilot,
right.
and we're going to see what the next couple episodes do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
So, but that's definitely a good call on that, Dan. All right, so this is
Lucky Devil.
Lucky Devil.
Yeah. Also Colin Bunn, I believe. Let me double check that.
It.
Colin Bunn and Fran Gallen. This is a real interesting story. This is a guy, basically an average guy named Stanley, ends up with the powers of hell. And now he's building up followers, almost like the Antichrist. It says, after an exorcism gone wrong, down on his luck schlub, Stanley finds he's retained all of the demon's supernatural powers and positions himself the leader of an insane worldwide cult, only to find himself pissing off the demons of hell. Now Stanley has to head to hell itself to determine whether or not he should keep these powers. And that basically what it is he got possessed. He paid $23 for an exorcism, which you get what you pay for. And it got the demon out of him, but he retained the powers. And now he's building up this cult around him, his girlfriend and the other people and the guy who did the exorcism. Well, now hell is upset that he's got these powers, and the devil has sent killers after him. So he's going into hell to try to make a deal to keep himself and his friends alive. And that this is their trip into hell, which starts off with an ice cream truck. It is Colin Bunn. It is as demented as he gets. This is the fourth issue of the series, so you are jumping in the middle, but it's intriguing enough that I'm now going to go back and find the other issues.
Yeah. The thing about this is, for me, is that it's kind of it's a story that you've heard before, in that concept of, if you had all the power in the world, how would you go about dealing with it? And would you give it up in favor of normal if it meant saving the people you care about? Like, so it's a power versus potential kind of story. It has machinations that are similar to Preacher. It has machinations that are similar to other stories where it's, if I could be the most powerful being on earth, Bruce Almighty, except with the devil.
Yes.
Right? It's, if I could be this guy, why would I give it up? Oh, well, these demons are going to kill everything I love and care about. All right, let's make a deal so I get to keep the power and they get to live. Well, isn't that simple?
Right.
And you know it's not that simple. So it's interesting it's going to be interesting to see how the two.
Yeah. And him, it's not a matter of him just, well, they try to take the power from him at one point and fail.
Right.
So he's more powerful than I think he realizes. And there's a good chance as this series progresses, he might be able to start fighting back.
And that's exactly it, right? Like right now, he's not fighting back. So there's this interesting concept of, if you have the tools, why don't you use them?
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see how this plays out.
What I'm interested in seeing is Cullen Bunn's day planner, because it has to be right, eat right, shower, eat right, sleep an
Something
hour, right.
something that he said to me when we've interviewed him
Uh-huh.
that is interesting, and I think it's true, is that he kind of writes not in the way that you'd think. Sometimes, like, he'll have stories that he sits down and he writes the entire story in one sitting, and it's okay. Now, how do we divide this up into single issues?
Yeah.
It's kind of stream of consciousness. And I know you do this too sometimes. Like when you have an idea, I sat down and wrote 3,700 words. I'm not sure I've read 3,700 words in a year.
Yeah.
But it's you sit down, you've got the whole story. Now it's figure out how to break it up.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what Cullen does. So yeah, I mean you don't see him that at conventions that often. You don't see him out and about that often, but he's got a really high turnout rate. So
Oh, absolutely.
all right. So we got a couple more minutes and we got one book left.
Yes. This I read this one. This is in the middle of the story, but it's an interesting jumping in point because basically these characters are sucked into this or teleported to this island and have to face a dragon. And these are the characters from the first campaign of Critical Role. The Matt Mercer, Travis Willingham, all those characters, or all those voice actors who do the series. These are their original characters, and these are the characters that got it started. Now, the Mighty Nine are probably more popular now. That series kept growing, but this is the original one, and it's neat to see these characters in action. You can almost hear the actors' voices when you're reading it, but it's a pretty straightforward story of them taking on this frost or white dragon with the frost abilities, who at one point could be a female, but they're doing it to save a town. So absolutely, if you are a fan of Critical Role or of this, this is a good issue, but I don't know if it's a jumping on point, because it really is. If you need to know these characters to understand this issue. Now, this is what, issue 4, 3? So you could pick up the
4.
Yeah, you could pick up the previous ones and do fine. And also, there's going to be the animated series coming up as well. So, but again, fans of Vox Machina, you'll love this. It's Rob, it's Bess, it's Scanlon, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, do want to mention some trade paperbacks and some hardcovers that are coming out.
I got one. Go ahead. I got one book.
Oh yeah, go ahead and mention your book.
I picked up the story of of Marvel Studios, that big slipcover. Yes, it was 150, but I got it for 90 off of Amazon.
Nice.
I am staying up super late at night reading this thing, and I'm only like 40 pages in. No, I'm about 80 pages in now, and I am loving it. The behind the scenes about Kevin Feige, things as simple as, if you've seen the original Iron Man movie where he's fighting Ironmonger, and he takes him up high in the sky because the icing issue, that wasn't in the original script. They had filmed everything. They got stuck on that part. They went to the writers. They went, "What do we do?" And they went, "Well, the icing issue, have that there." So it was a Chekhov's gun thing in that they dropped it in there, and there was nothing about it later in the script. And then it becomes crucial to defeating Ironmonger. And you realize how much by the seat of their pants they put this entire thing together. So I am, like I said, 80 pages in, and I am fascinated by this book.
Yeah, Lefty, Knighted sounds really fun. We couldn't get a preview, so we didn't talk about it on the show, but it does sound like a real fun book this week. So things that I want to mention, Man, Goat, and the Bunnyman trade paperback from our friends over at Zenoscope, Joe Bruscia and Kat Vajardo. The Wall trade paperback from Magnetic Press. In a post-apocalyptic future, civilization is no more and humanity lives on looting and hacking, organizing itself into makeshift villages or caravans of roaring wrecks. In this brutal society, a young repairman named Salal does what he can to protect his sister Eva, who suffers from a respiratory illness. But when their medication runs out, they have only one hope: to go to the Wall, a gigantic, impregnable enclosure guarded by monstrous robots. Inside that fabled shelter lives a community of powerful people with the resources to help them. But not all is all is not as optimistic as it seems.
Yeah. Joel Dot Self is actually from Comixology. It's their originals that they're publishing. So
yeah, we don't know exactly when it's going to come out in print if it does.
Right. So it's available on the Comixology site though, as of right now. Yeah, November 2nd.
Yeah. So then other books from Image Comics Friday, Volume 1, which has never been traded before. It's never been a trade before. Ed Brubaker, Mustafa Vicente, and Marcos Martin collect and print for the first time. A young adult detective hero finally grows up in the first volume of this genre-defying post-YA masterpiece from award-winning Ed Brubaker. Friday Fitzhugh spent her childhood solving crimes and digging up occult secrets with her best friend Lancelot Jones, the smartest boy in the world. But that was the past. Now she's in college, starting a new life on her own, or so she thought. When Friday comes home for the holidays, she's immediately pulled back into Lance's orbit and finds that something very strange and dangerous is happening in their little New England town. This is literally the Christmas vacation from hell, and they may not survive to see New Year. So that book has never been collected in a trade before, but that was so good.
Sorry. Said vacation.
And then there is, and these are the kind of books that I'm really into right now. From Top Shelf Productions, Ballad for Sophie, which is a graphic novel, OGN. A young journalist prompts a reclusive piano superstar to open up, resulting in this stunning graphic sonata exploring a lifetime of rivalry, regret, and redemption. I'm not going to go into it further than that because we're running out of time. But check out Ballad for Sophie if you're looking for a kind of heavier, more memoir-esque graphic novel.
By the way, I looked up that second cover that you mentioned for The Rush, and I see why you think it's spoiler.
Yeah, it's a little spoilery.
Yeah.
So, this has been in stores this week.
It has.
Dan will be back tomorrow for the Dan Wickline program.
We're going to take a look at the new Morbius trailer and how that might fit in with the Marvel Universe now that things are kind of merging with Sony. And we see Michael Keaton popping up in it.
And if you can search, it's going to be a little hard to find. We got to figure out how to make it less hard to find. And I'm working on that tomorrow. Dan's deep dive into the Eternals, because the Eternals comes out this weekend. And Dan literally wrote the YouTube show on the Eternals. So we will get into that. Hopefully we'll share that back out here in the next few days. And then he will be back Thursday with another show.
We're going to talk about Boba Fett.
Yes.
Because we finally got the Boba Fett trailer. And, Boba Fett, everybody from my age group, that was the guy. Even the toy, we mailed away for it. So we're going to talk Morbius tomorrow. We're talking Boba Fett on Thursday. So you want to definitely come in for those.
Yes. And then stay tuned. Up next, Miss Jen will be doing it's a pre-recorded interview, but it's an interview nonetheless, with Mog Park and Rob Multari. They have a Kickstarter going right now in a special edition of her show, Talking Shop. So for Dan, I've been Kyle. Dan will see you all later this week. I will see you next week. And make sure you head into your local comic shop. Check out Comic Shop Locator if you need help finding one. We will see everybody then. Bye, everybody.
Good night, everybody.